Hi, welcome to the first ever Sanditon Fancast. We're a fan-created podcast about the masterpiece / BritBox show Sanditon. Now, we're an after show, so after watching the episode, you can put us on and we will discuss and overanalyze every single detail of the episode, one at an excruciating time.
But before we start, I realize this might be the first time you're listening to one of our podcasts. So, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We should introduce ourselves. I'm Michelle. I live in the States, and you can find me at Musings on Instagram and Twitter.
And I'm Rita. I live in England, and I'm at Annoying Rita on Instagram and Twitter. And if you end up enjoying the podcast, then please remember to subscribe and to rate us. We will coming out with new podcasts every week. If you could give us a review, we would really appreciate that because, as we said, this is a new podcast and we would love to grow an audience with us.
Episode 1 of Season 2 was written by Andrew Davies and Justin Young and was directed by Charles Sturridge, who directed the last 2 episodes of Season 1 and the first 3 episodes of this season. So there's a nice bridge across the seasons in that respect. And Sturridge is most famous for directing the iconic 1980s version of Brideshead Revisited, starring Jeremy Irons, which went on to win over 17 awards, including 2 Golden Globes. So he is very much a respected figure in British television. And, as with the writer Andrew Davies, period dramas are very much in his wheelhouse. We should be in safe hands for the next episodes.
Okay, so we usually start our podcast with a recap. This one's pretty lengthy, so strap in. Okay, the season began in Antigua with the death and then burial of Sydney Parker, R.I.P., R.I.P.
R.I.P., R.I.P.
And then cut to Mary arriving at Willington in full mourning to break the news to Charlotte, who's mid-jig, no less. Charlotte breaks down in tears and they embrace. After the credits, we're introduced to 2 new characters, Augusta, a very beautiful if persistently grumpy teenage girl, and little Leo, who turns out to be 9 years old, but she looked way younger to me. Leo is dressed in an old army red coat uniform and saluting a regiment as they march past them and into Sanditon.
In town, Georgiana Lamb tells a potential suitor that she may admire his carriage, but would rather be boiled alive than marry him. I like her style. This gets her into trouble with her new guardians, Tom and Mary Parker, who decide that Georgiana needs a friend and companion following Sydney's death, and they have written to Charlotte and her sister Allison, inviting them to stay with them for the summer. Allison and Charlotte arrive in Sanditon, and while the former is buzzing with excitement, there is an air of melancholy about Charlotte as she arrives back at the Parker house and sees Sydney's really terrible portrait. It's bad. She passes on her condolences to the family, but also expresses her confusion that Sydney was even in Antigua in the first place. You and everybody else, hon. Tom tells her that they are having Sydney's possessions shipped back in the hopes of finding out what he was doing, and he expresses how thankful he is that Sydney was able to be with his wife Eliza before his death. The dunderhead. He is oblivious that Sydney made such a huge sacrifice for him. And that should be interesting when the penny drops, because you know it's gonna.
So it turns out that Georgiana is now living with Reverend Hankins and his sister, and she's having about as much fun as you would expect in that situation.
No more, want no more. Feed me till I want no more.
Across town, Tom is showing the Hayward sisters the brand new stonking set for Sanditon. He casually drops that Mr. Stringer, aka that annoying K-drama second lead that pined after Charlotte all throughout season 1, is in London being an architect, even though that's the exact opposite of what he said he was doing. Anyway.
Damn it! Oh.
Now, cross off your Austen bingo, because we also learn that a colonel and his regiment will be staying for the summer, and they plan on doing a big old parade when they arrive, because why not? But the exposition doesn't stop there, folks. There's also a new artist in town. His name's Charles Lockhart. The girls are introduced to him. He is traipsing around... traipsing?
Yes, traipsing.
Too early in the morning. He's traipsing around town in a sarong, so you know he's, like, super artsy and rebellious. This intimidates Alison, who has never left the village, and insists they need to get better clothes if they're going to attract a rich husband this season. Charlotte tells her that this is not what she wants, but will Alison listen? Of course she won't.
Of course not. Alison and Charlotte head to Sanditon's fancy new tea rooms, where they meet Georgiana. The two besties run into each other's arms and squeal with excitement. It's so stinking cute. During their tea, Georgiana explains that she is leading a sugar boycott so that she may cripple the slave economy. Alison vows never to have sugar again. They then discuss how Georgiana has been besieged by fortune hunters, but alas, she is not the only one trying to evade a proposal. It seems our dear Charlotte is being pressured by her father to accept the attention of Ralph, a Willington farmer. She doesn't seem down for that party, though. Across town, Lady Denham is badgering Tom Parker not to rest on his laurels. Some of the properties may be let, but his grand plan for the town has ground to a halt. Tom says he has learned his lesson from last time and won't proceed without having all the funds in place. Hallelujah, God is real, etc., etc. Except we know that promise can't last. Yeah.
Can't last.
Nope.
So after their tea, the new gang of Ali, Lottie and George decide to do something insane, if you ask me, and they head on down to the regiment's camp. Just walk right on in. Thankfully, Charlotte's there to display some excellent common sense.
I can't say I've ever understood the appeal that soldiers are meant to hold for our sex. Because they are brave and noble and heroic. And frequently handsome. Doubtless some are. Yet I cannot help thinking those qualities are conferred on anyone in a red coat, regardless of what true character lies beneath.
Someone's been reading her Austen. They ambush a conveniently shirtless Colonel Lennox and his aide, Captain Fraser. It becomes very obvious that Colonel Lennox is flirting with Charlotte, which delights Alison because at this point she's willing to throw her sister at just any old man that comes along. Okay, so back in Sanditon town, Lady Denham and her niece Esther are walking when they encounter a baby in a pram. Esther looks visibly moved. Lady Denham, in her typically abrasive manner, asks her why she isn't pregnant after 9 months of marriage. Esther explains that she's visiting Sanditon while her husband's away in hopes of recuperating following a miscarriage the previous month. Esther has season 1 fave, Dr. Fuchs, visit her that afternoon, and she explains that her previous doctors told her it would be fatal for her to try again. Dr. Fuchs warns her that he could give her every elixir under the sun, but there just might not be a cure. Esther, in her desperation, promises to do anything it takes.
That evening, Alison and Charlotte are in their room preparing for bed. Alison brings up Colonel Lennox again, much to her sister's annoyance. She wants to see her sister happy again. Charlotte sighs and tells her that love is not as simple as she thinks, and the ghost of Sidney Parker lingers over her. Scary ghosts. Next day, as the family walk towards the parade, Arthur Parker explains to Charlotte that his ailments have miraculously vanished now that he isn't around his hypochondriac sister.
Ooh,
Fancy that. Mm-hmm. having an occupation, agrees with him. He's trying to be a support to his brother since Sidney's death. He worries about Tom, who can barely bear to speak of Sidney. He explains that because Sidney was buried abroad and they don't have a grave to visit, he often lights a candle for him at the church. It seems a little bit Catholic, but he finds it cathartic. He then leaves them to go take tea with Miss Lamb. Lady Denham has reserved herself the best seat in town for the parade. She witnesses Reverend Hawkins and his sister handing out sugar boycott pamphlets and declares it all radical nonsense that won't do any good anyway. When she learns it was all Georgiana's doing, she becomes even more dismissive. So we have that confrontation to look forward to.
Oh, I wait with bated breath.
Yes.
Now the military parade starts, much to the town's excitement, and the vibe is jubilant. Mary, Charlotte, and Alison happen upon Lady Denham and Babington and have some incredibly awkward chit-chat about marriage. Lady Denham declares unmarried women to be worthless pariahs who bring shame and ruin upon their family. Thanks. No one would ever choose to be a spinster, according to her. And Charlotte's facial expression is like, okay, challenge accepted. As the parade finally reaches our protagonists, we see Colonel Lennox flanked by Captain Fraser again, aka he's the Scottish one, and Captain Carter, aka the baby-faced one. It's like we're putting together a boy band here. But surprise! Behind them, on his horse and looking unfortunately handsome, in his red coat, is Sir Edward Denham, aka the Predator one. Woo! Esther looks shooketh.
Yes, to the core. Trailing behind the regiment is little Leo, still dressed in the hand-me-down red army coat, or army red coat. You know what I'm trying to say. And before you know it, there's a potential horse trampling incident. Charlotte, who spots the child, runs across and drags them out of the way of the hooves just in the nick of time. She carries Leo back to the Parkers' dining room, where she displays some remarkable 19th century first aid. It is then that we learn that Leo is actually Leonora, and that the very annoyed teenage girl from earlier is her cousin Augusta. On the carriage journey home, we also know that both their mothers are dead, and they live at Hyrick Park, a grand house that has never been seen or mentioned before in the story. Anyway, when the kids are dropped off, the housekeeper mentions that they are looking for a governess, and Charlotte has a twinkle in her eyes as if they have just gotten an idea. We then cut to everyone's favorite time, tea time with Georgiana and Arthur.
That would be a really great podcast, by the way.
Yes.
Spill the tea, sis.
She declares that she wishes he would marry her. She finds all the suitors tedious. They don't care for her as a person. They just see her as a purse of money. Arthur promises to keep an eye out for a kindred spirit in search of a wife, and he doesn't have long to wait because they bump into that artsy Charles Lockhart on the way home. She is immediately frosty, and in classic Babington fashion, that only makes him want to get to know her even better.
Oh, I love that trope. So, when Charlotte returns back to the Parker home, she finds Tom and Mary gossiping about Alexander Colborne, the miserly recluse responsible for the girls she just recovered. Charlotte accurately points out that he has never been mentioned before, but we're supposed to understand him as some kind of arch nemesis that wanted to keep Sanditon a fishing village. Exposition time.
After the death of his wife some years ago, Mr. Colborne largely withdrew from society.
Yeah, they say the precise circumstances of her death have never been explained.
Oh, Arthur.
We love a gothic vibe, but watch her death be like completely reasonable. Some tragic sickness. Ugh.
Yes.
Colonel Lennox then arrives and proceeds to throw himself at Charlotte, gross, much to Alison's delight. She has bought the hat for the wedding folks, It's all become a bit too much for poor Charlotte, though, who has to excuse herself. Lady Denham has a visit from her creepy nephew, who has arrived in full military regala, declaring himself to be a changed man who had no notion that the Colonel would bring him to Sanditon. Shocked Pikachu face. Lady Denham is not buying it, but makes him promise to keep away from Esther. He immediately breaks that promise because it's Edward. As soon as he sees Esther entering the house, he starts on his toxic bullshit yet again, telling her, oh, he's missed her. Oh, she looks so great. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Esther just, walks away.
Yep.
Queen.
Back in Sanditon, Charlotte visits the church and lights a candle for Sydney. Another voiceover plays as she cries. And I cry, and we all cry. Because cry. When she arrives home that evening, everyone else is in bed. Allison is quick to apologize to her and explains that she had hoped that by coming to Sanditon, she would have laid her feelings for Sydney to rest.
I've realized I can never again put myself in a man's power. Just not Ralph or Colonel Lennox. It is marriage itself.
But how will we live if we do not marry? We do not have the freedom of Georgiana's fortune. We are poor, Charlotte. Wretchedly so. 3 bad harvests in a row. Papa cannot afford to keep us.
Nor would I expect him to. I will keep myself.
How?
Good question. She's going to become a governess, and she just happens to know of a position in town. How convenient for us. We then cut to the regiment's camp, where Colonel Lennox is thanking that awful reprobate Edward Denham for suggesting Sanditon as a post.
Kel surprise!
Yeah. Lennox also asks him why he bet 2 guineas at cards last night, given that he has yet to pay for his commission. Snaky Denham tells him not to worry, he will have the money within weeks. Well, there go all hopes for reformation, not that we had any, really. There's a beautiful scene where Esther writes to Babington about how she loves him and her hopes that the sea air will do her a world of good and miraculously make her able to bear children. It's melancholy, but it's nice to know she and Babington are still very much in love.
Silver linings.
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte then heads over to Hayrick Park for her interview. While she waits to be shown in, she sees a portrait of a beautiful young woman hanging in the foyer. Now, I would assume that this is his dead wife, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here. She's then brought into the study and beats Mr. Alexander Colborne himself. Mm-hmm. Now, he's Leonora's father and Augusta's uncle. At this point, I was very confused about this situation.
Yes.
Okay. He proceeds to ask her to do some simple arithmetic, what instruments she plays, etc., and asks for a letter of recommendation from her previous employer, which, of course, she does not have. When she tells him that she has some classical learning, and then she starts listing Greek poets, Colborne interrupts her and asks what use those are to Augusta.
Society asks that a woman be accomplished, not learned. Trust me, Miss Hayward. I know what happens when a woman falls short of society's expectations.
Then society is wrong, sir. Why should your girls be deprived of an education on account of their sex? I would seek to open their minds to the world around them, not encourage them to be meekly submissive. So if that is what you are looking for, I apologise for wasting your time.
She then proceeds to storm out of the interview despite the fact that he hasn't said anything. Très dramatique. She's followed by Colborne's very, very cute little dog, who I think is a Scottish deerhound, guys. Fun fact, that's the same type of dog that Mr. Rochester had in the 2006 version of Jane Eyre, aka the best one. Yes. So I'm officially calling this moment an allusion to Jane Eyre. Do not at me, I've decided. Anywho, The dog gets some strokies and he smiles up at her, or she, I'm not really sure about the gender of the dog yet, and starts running back into the study to get Colborne off his damn arse and following Charlotte. Quite the little matchmaker.
Yes. Meanwhile, Allison and Georgiana are up to no good. They steal the carriage of Georgiana's rejected suitor and begin to head to the beach in the direction of the regiment. They are galloping faster and faster, and it's all jolly good fun until the axle breaks and they overturn. But luckily for her, a handsome soldier, Captain Carter, just happens to save her. Cue the heart eyes. Over at the Parker house, Tom tells Mary that a letter has arrived with information about Sidney. It seems he was in Antigua to settle Georgiana's affairs, which is like, duh.
Yeah.
Duh? Huh?
Why else would he be there, guys?
Yeah, of course. But it seems to surprise all of them. What those affairs are, we don't find out right now. Another one of those damn cliffhangers. Colborne catches up with Charlotte on the cliffs. His galloping horse, Poldark flashbacks, anyone? He briskly offers her the position and tells her she starts on Monday. The show ends with her walking back into town. The end.
Okay. What were your first impressions of this episode?
Oh, I loved it. I thought that it was, they used that hour to not only kind of catch us up on what's going on, but to tell quite a story. I thought that it was pretty masterful how much they packed into that episode.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about, like, the sheer amount of information that was dumped upon our laps, it was an exposition fest, but they did it so seamlessly, like, you didn't really notice while you were watching. It was very noticeable to me when I was writing the recap, but it was, it was a lot. It was almost like they were rebooting the show, you know, and they had to introduce all these new characters and then, like, write off the actors that wouldn't be coming back. And I think they did a really good job. Unlike you, I first watched this episode back when it was released.
Okay.
I did a whole rewatch of season 1, and then I went into this episode straight off the back, like no gap between the last episode and the first episode of this one. And I found the way that they sort of mirrored aspects of that episode into this one really powerful, and when you realize that it's the same director, it all sort of makes sense. I ended up like weeping like 3 or 4 different times. I think I just found it very moving the way they handled Sidney's death. It felt like a real gut punch when you realised, like, that love story was over. But I think they did it sensitively, and, like, by the end of the episode, I was like, okay, I've accepted this, we've mourned, time to move on.
Time to move on.
Speaking of, does this intrigue you for the rest of season 2?
There are plenty of things that we watched in this episode that are going to lead us down a merry path. You know, not only, you know, the fact that, you know, we've got these soldiers basically encamped at Sanditon. You know, we've got dastardly asshole back.
Oh, God.
And you know that's going to create all kinds of drama. You know, we've got obviously the love stories that, you know, we're going to see, and we've got, you know, a couple of tropes going there that you know, we have enjoyed in the past. You know, I'm intrigued to find out what's going on with Georgiana's estate and what that is going to mean for her. You know, is there a problem? Has the money disappeared? You know, what's the deal? So, so there's that. You know, the fact that Tom is saying he's not going to wind up getting ahead of himself when we know damn well that he will. because
Didn't he
he's
say that
Tom.
like every episode in season 1? Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be sensible.
Yeah, and so we know that there's going to be some trouble on that end of things. I mean, quite frankly, I'm surprised that Tom isn't putting the full court press on Arthur to marry Georgiana so that they can get her fortune.
Well, he's already done that once.
Yeah.
Poor
Hey,
Sydney.
if it worked the first time, it'll work again.
God.
So yeah, I mean, there is a lot for us to explore in these. Did you say 6 episodes?
Yes, 6 episodes.
So
and then
we don't
next
even
season as well, because this is this is going to carry on for another.
Yes.
Well, it's 12 episodes. This is going to be exciting.
Okay.
And they filmed them all in one go, so we're definitely getting them like last time.
Nice, nice. Oh,
What I loved about this episode and what I suspect will happen this season is like now that they've sort of accidentally lost 3 of the romantic leads of season 1, you would expect there to be a void in this show.
yeah.
But there wasn't. Like, the female characters are amazing and they're so incredibly well drawn that they've filled that void by really centering those stories instead. I mean, you got like Charlotte as a protagonist in her own right. You know, she's fantastic. I love Charlotte. She's just ball of sunshine. And then you have Georgiana, who I think now that Sydney's gone, she has more of an opportunity to be an individual, and she's less of a stroppy teenager like she was in season 1, and she has more of an agency, which I'm super excited to see.
Yeah.
And I think like her relationship with Charles will be sparky. And obviously there's like Esther, who, you know, her husband is no longer in the show.
Yeah.
In season 1, she was dealing with like that romance and then also the shit with Edmund almost exclusively. And now you get these scenes with her aunt and she's dealing with all these fertility issues. And there isn't a sense that Babington should be there for that. I think it's very focused on like her own personal journey, and I kind of love that the show's chosen to just lean into its strengths.
Yes.
And because I think a lot of other shows would have just been like, here, have all the male leads, and they've definitely, obviously they've hired more men.
Yeah, and you know, like they're half naked already.
Yeah, but they're just there to be pretty. Like, the show is still like, these females are the core of the show.
They're half naked already.
Only one of them was half naked. Well, there have yet to be other half naked men.
I'm sorry, what about Colonel Lennox?
Yes,
striding out, huh?
That's one man. One man. Where are the other half-naked men?
The artist!
Theo James was full butt naked.
The artist comes out of the sea and throws a sarong on, barely covering his nethers.
Yeah, that's a good point. 2 men.
Yeah. So
I don't know if we can ever top full butt naked though, for the sheer shock value. I love that, like, Alison is horrified and Charlotte's just like, yeah, I've seen a naked man before, no biggies.
Oh, God.
Okay, so one of the, like, biggest changes, obviously, was the set. Like, the sets had a complete overhaul. What did you think about the new look?
I thought that it looked great. It looks massive. And it is obviously the palette that they have is quite different from what we had in season 1. Season 1, things were still a little dark and not really well put together because, you know, they were in the process of building. But yeah, it was pretty dingy. You know.
Did you think, I felt like season 1 looked a bit like a Western. Like, it was, everything was like made out of wood and like
Yes.
barely
Yep.
held together.
Yes, exactly. Well, and it must have been all wood because the whole damn thing burns down. So, they learned their lesson and they didn't do that again. But it really reminded me of kind of what a cartoon version of Bath is,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it looks huge and incredibly impressive. But yeah, I mean, the differences are very stark.
I mean, the geography of it makes
Yes.
my head want to, cry. It's like, what? How? Because in season 1, it was just that one street. They just had a one street set, and then they walked behind between a gap in the boards, and there was the beach. And now it's like a completely it's a curved shape that doesn't make any sense because it was previously straight. I mean, the geography of this town just makes no sense. I feel like also the Parker's house looks like it's completely on a different street now. I mean, who can work out where the Reverend lives? He's just in the middle of nowhere. There's also this new park that Hayrick Park that they've
this whole new, very expensive piece of property that
just out of nowhere
was never mentioned in the first season. They've got another rich dude living in Sanditon. Surprise, surprise.
Oh God. Anyway, but I do like that they're using, obviously they've got this huge new set and that's beautiful, but they're also using more locations than they were in season 1. Sanditon House, which is Lady Denham's house, was obviously a set in season 1.
Yeah.
And I much prefer the atmosphere of having a real location in season 2, and that scene where Dr. Fawkes is trying to climb all those endless sets of stairs.
God.
One of my favourite little character moments. And
yes.
It's just so funny. And you wouldn't get that if they were
on
back
a set.
on the set,
Yeah. No, I agree. I love the fact that, we're seeing more, real life. I mean, it's one of the reasons why, shows like Downton Abbey, like Poldark, even though Poldark, after season 2 was basically all on sets with a few exterior shots here or there. But, it's one of the reasons why, our favorite, Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
You go to these locations and you are able to just get the size and scale of the space that these characters are living in, and it becomes another character. So,
and that's really important for this show in particular, because as much as it is about these characters, it's also about the growth of the town as well.
Yes.
That's such an important aspect. And in season 1, I was not really down for Tom's obsession with the town. And now I'm oh yeah, I get it. This is an achievement. This place looks bomb. Look at what you've done. So
yeah. Thank you, Sydney.
Thank you, Sydney.
Thank you, Sydney.
I think you should be thanking Eliza. This is her money.
That's true.
So one thing I would think we should maybe talk about, like I said, I've rewatched season 1, and it really contrasts hugely with how I think Charlotte's character has evolved. And she's just fundamentally changed since the first episode.
Yeah. She has suffered, a tremendous loss. Not only the fact that she is basically jilted after having Sydney, promise to basically marry her, and then, my bad, I gotta go get myself hitched to this other chick so that I can bail my idiot brother out of his stupidity. So, she's had that experience, that loss. And then that goes double when he dies. And so, her character would have had to change, and had a fundamental change, having gone through something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we're seeing is a change in archetypes for her.
Mm-hmm.
She came in as a very sort of bubbly, naive, like, God, how many times did Sydney call her naive in season 1? It was also like a little rude. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now she's definitely more pensive and thoughtful. I mean, if we're going to use Jane Austen tropes, which we absolutely should, because I feel like season 2 is just like Jane Austen bingo.
Yes.
Then I think she's gone from like more of a Catherine Morland or like a Kitty Bennett, just, very cheery, optimistic, little young go-getter. She's like, everyone should try and achieve their dreams from season 1. And in season 2, I think she's more like Anne Elliot from Persuasion, where she has been just so hurt and has just given up on love.
Mm-hmm.
There's a definite shift in her perspective that has happened through the loss of Sydney. And when the character archetype changes, I think that changes the kind of storyline you can give her as well, and it's interesting to see what kind of relationship she's going to have. Ooh, speaking of.
And I think we're really going to have to do Jane Austen bingo, because there are bingo cards.
I feel like we'd already have got bingo by now. Just in one episode.
Oh my God.
Storylines.
We've talked a little bit about Sydney's death, and I have to give the team massive props for just getting it over with, and and basically saying no, he is not coming back. With Bridgerton season 2, we had, occasional references to Simon, and, him off doing something or blah, 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 blah. And, that just, I don't, and please, nobody come for me. I'm not wishing death on Simon. Okay. Let's just make that clear, because that little baby needs daddy. But, they made it very, very clear that is an avenue that is closed off forever. So, was really glad that they did that, and how it was treated in the storytelling of the episode.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think it would have been a really easy thing to have just been like, oh, he's off married to Eliza, blah, blah, blah. But that would have been really unsatisfying.
Mm-hmm.
In the back of your head, you would always be like, but what if Eliza dies tragically in childbirth?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Some Spanish flu incident. Oh, sorry. Wrong show.
Wrong era. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think... there's been some grumblings online about whether this was necessary, and I think it absolutely had to be, because...
The question would always be there.
Exactly. And I don't think you could justify having Charlotte be like, having Charlotte be closed off to love forever under those circumstances, because it's like, there's always the possibility.
Yeah.
And I think it was just incredibly moving, and does a lot of... it's an opportunity for Charlotte as a character to grow as well, and she's the main focus of our story now. Bye-bye, Sydney.
Yeah, but R.I.P. Sydney. You know, the leather trousers will live in our memory forever.
He still lives in my head rent-free. Oh, God. Anyway, I need to move on. But I also think, like, it's gonna be... Not only does it, like, close off that chapter, it also opens a new one with Colborne because he's a widower. And I think, you know, having them both having gone through the loss of someone they loved will help them connect, I assume. She's ending up with him after one episode. But I just think, like, it does so much for the storyline other than just tell people to get over it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, Charlotte's return to Sanditon.
Oh, I mean, that was one of the most powerful scenes in the show's history, if you ask me, when she re-entered the Parker house. Mm-hmm. This is where I just sobbed, where she's walking in and she hears Sydney's voice. How beautiful is Theo James's voice, by the way? I was like, when you isolate it, it's like, tinkles. And I thought it was such a good touch that she's wearing the same yellow coat she wore in season 1 on that beach scene where she first connects with Sydney. It was such a great costuming choice. Yeah. And I hated that I noticed it. It made me cry harder.
You have such a soft heart for these shows.
Yeah.
And these characters.
You know I love a little bit of tragedy.
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. I thought that it was really well done. I think I may have a quibble here or there, i.e. the portrait. But I mean, because Theo James is beautiful, and that just, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna let it go. I'm letting it go. But no, I thought that was really beautiful. And I know that, one of the things that kind of tripped me up was the fact that, it had only been 3 months and the family was not all wearing black. And, I was thinking, well, don't they have to do that for a year? But, I know that you have since explained that it's usually not the case with, if it was a husband or something like that, then there would be that whole, that whole, year-long mourning stuff. But
they would be in half mourning though. Like you would expect them to be wearing grey or lavender or something. Okay. So it's definitely a fuck up, but it's not so severe.
They're not supposed to be wearing crisp pastels and things like that. But no, I thought that was good. And I was thinking, that Sanditon would be a really incredibly hard place for Charlotte to return to, given everything that happened. But, I think that, that things are going to go well for her in this time around.
It wouldn't be an Austen story if she doesn't get a happily ever after.
Yes, of course.
But I do love the interaction she had with the Parker siblings and how they... I mean, Tom's still oblivious to the fact that she was in love with Sydney, but they handled her with such care.
Yes.
And I thought that was beautiful as well, because it's like she's an honorary Parker, even if she didn't end up marrying into them. They all care for each other so much. And I think, as much as it's obviously hurting her to be back, there is like the upside of like, oh, she has her own little family there as well. It's just really nice. Yeah. Oh, I love this show sometimes. Oh, it's so sweet.
It's really sweet.
Sweet.
Really sweet.
But her actual real family, let's talk about Alison. Who is an insane, I love her, but she's insane.
There are elements of so many Austen characters all balled up into one Alison. We've got a little bit of Lydia, We've got a little bit of Marianne.
She gives me lots of Marianne vibes.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's because the actress looks a bit Kate Winslet-y. There's a vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I think that it can be very easy to sort of see Alison as just purely frivolous and boy mad. But I like that scene where she's like, we're fucking poor, by the way.
Yeah.
It's 1820. We have limited options. Like, what are we going to do?
Yeah. She is not all just fluff about the men. She knows that they are, that what is going to be the best thing for them is if they are to find husbands.
Yeah. And,
for the protection, for caring for them, and, otherwise, they'll be spinsters.
Look, their family has like 11 children.
Yeah.
11. That's an insane amount of kids to provide for. Yeah.
Of course, the thing that just popped into my head was Monty Python, every sperm is sacred. But I digress.
But I think she's obviously very scared of poverty, and that is something I
totally understand.
Yeah, I totally get that, and I think that would be my constant fear. This is like when people romanticize going back and living in that era, I'm like, but you don't have many options, and like
Seriously.
It literally doesn't take much to just be living in abject poverty. So
Seriously.
like her level of intensity of like, we have to get married, it makes sense to me. Like, there is a sense of panic in her, but she's obviously also having a great time with the soldiers.
Because she's in the city, which is in the country, but it's the city compared to where they live. And she's got a whole regiment of soldiers running around half naked.
I think, obviously she's not being very sensitive to the fact that she's lost Sydney. Like, obviously not the best, but she's also a teenage girl who did not witness anything that happened in season 1.
Yeah.
And I don't get the sense from Charlotte that she's sharing a lot of her emotions or what happened. Like, Alison was like, I'm not stupid. I sense what happened, but she's not got the details. So it's very hard for her to understand the full implications of Charlotte's feelings.
Mm-hmm. The depth and breadth of what she has experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like, I worry about characters like this because so often I've seen online, it's like, it's every period character, especially in the Regency era, that is like, I'm independent and I want women's rights and rah, 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 feminism. It gets lauded as, like, fantastic.
Right.
And then if there's another girl that wants to get married and seems to think that that's the option that most suits her, they get shitted on for not being independent enough. And I just think, like, that's not taking into account their lives and the actual experience of their everyday. So support your marriage-minded little sisters is what I'm saying.
Being a feminist does not mean being anti-marriage.
And honestly, if it's literally your only option for... Not everyone wants to be a governess as well. Like, calm down. Also, if you think being a governess is great, I'm going to suggest you read some books about what it was actually like.
Yeah.
It's not all Jane Eyre.
Okay. Miss Georgiana's rebelliousness.
Like, season 1, Georgiana. I liked Georgiana, but she was low-key annoying me sometimes with how much she was whiny.
Yes.
But I'm loving Georgiana in this first episode.
Yeah.
I think the loss of Sydney has really impacted her in probably the most interesting way, because she doesn't have a scapegoat for all of her unhappiness now.
Mm-hmm.
She has way more agency, and she's out here fucking with these what are they called? It's not a gold digger when you're can you call
Fortune
a man
hunter.
a gold digger?
Fortune hunter.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's fucking with these fortune hunters. She's stealing their carriages and she's having the time of her life, and I love that. And she's just fun.
Yeah, I have been enjoying her character. The fact that there's something going on in Antigua with her fortune makes me nervous because,
we need her to keep her money.
Yeah. If she loses her money, that is quite frankly the only thing that is protecting her.
Well, she does have the Parker family now, so
yeah, but I mean, as far as who she is as a black woman,
yeah,
in that time, the only thing protecting her is that money, and if the fortune is gone, then what is she going to do?
I feel like it would be absolutely horrific for her to lose the money on the one hand, and I like her being like the top dog in town that everyone flocks around because she's the richest. But on the other hand, I think it might be quite freeing for her just to be valued or just for herself. Like it's like a burden and her saving grace at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a complicated situation for her.
Yeah.
It's just like she's an interesting character. And I like the sugar boycott thing. I think that's going to be fun. It's going to obviously come to a head with Lady Dunham.
Of course.
The pineapple scene remains lodged in my head rent-free, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, God. Well, if nobody else in town is using the sugar, Lady Denham can throw it all in her tea because it looks like that's what she's trying to do.
So the sugar boycott storyline is probably one of my favourite threads in this episode, and it's a storyline that's based on a real boycott that was happening in the 1820s. The real one was started by a woman called Elizabeth Hayrick. She was a Quaker from Leicester. Quakers played a major role in the abolition movement in the UK and I guess also in the US. And rather than the gradual abolition model the government implemented, like they said in the episode, the government had just made the trade of slaves illegal rather than actually owning them. The Quakers advocated for just immediate abolition. This movement was also interesting to me because it was created by and targeted towards women who made most of the purchasing decisions in the house. These ladies set up anti-slavery associations in towns and cities around the country, and they produced pamphlets and got women to abstain from purchasing any good produced via slavery. At its height, over 300,000 households participated, and the drop in consumption made plantation-grown sugar increasingly uneconomic and gradually weakened support for the slave trade, so it was hugely successful. What do you think about the scenes we got with her and Charles Lockhart? Because I am here for it. I love a good.
Oh yeah. Are you calling like enemies to friends to lovers?
Yeah.
Oh yes, totally here for it. Here for it. I
love it. I love the disdain she has for him. I love that. I also I think he's one of the few people who's absolutely not interested in her money because he obviously has his art and his own little arty world.
Yeah, and my guess is that he's got some fundage, because he's got to have some money to be able to live the lifestyle that he's living.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, you don't. You're not like a working class painter.
No.
The paint alone is so expensive; it's insane. I'm really looking forward to talking more about those two. They're going to be electric.
Yes.
Another storyline we got was the introduction of Esther's fertility issues.
Yeah. I really like the fact that we are dealing with this in the series. And I love the fact that it's Esther.
Yeah.
that is having to deal with this. Esther, who, we loved in season 1. And the fact that she is truly in love with her husband. The affection that she demonstrated towards him in the letter that she wrote, makes it clear that, she loves him desperately and wants to become a mother and give him a child. And I'm very interested to see kind of what women tried to do in order to deal with infertility issues in that time. And I wonder if it'll stay true to history, or if they're going to do something that would be, wait a second, you can't do that now, that will raise the ire of my pedantic self.
Where she's gonna magically have a baby.
Yeah,
hey, you
exactly.
never know. The arse's milk might just transform her.
There you go. So, what do you think?
Well, I love this actress. I think that she, every scene she is in, she steals it for me. And I love this storyline because it, quite often, we read romances and people get married and woo, happily ever after, and they get all the babies and they get everything they want. It's as tragic as this is, I think it's also refreshing to have, she got this man and she's really happy in that aspect, but she's also dealing with something that's incredibly hard, and this is a society that is so incredibly focused on lineage. And, he's titled, so the pressure on her to have children is so intense, and she obviously wants them for herself as to be a mother and to experience that. So it's just adds extra hurt. They're dealing with so many interesting things in this storyline. And what I think I like most about it is that Esther hasn't lost her sense of identity during all of this quite tragic situation. She's still incredibly sarcastic, and she's fucking with Lady Denham, and there is a sense that she can withstand this. No matter how sad it might be, she's still going to have a great relationship with her husband at the end of the day. It's not going to get the better of them. And I appreciate that, because I think sometimes when the storyline has played out before in other shows I've seen, it can sometimes become very tropey and melodramatic, and the women can become pathological about wanting a child. Cue Bridgerton illusions, where it's just it's obviously something that she cares about, but not to the extent that she's willing to damage all her relationships to get it. And I think that's why I like it so far. It's done well.
Although it is clear that she is willing to risk her safety to give him a child.
I don't think that is unrealistic. I think
I
lots
agree.
of women would be.
Yeah, I agree.
And I like that Dr. Folks as well has just been telling her the absolute truth and don't be delusional. There may not be a fix. So many doctors of the time, charlatans, would have been here, of course I can fix this, stick this paste on your belly, or whenever. A mad respect for Dr. Folks.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he's not getting her to have a shower, but
Oh, gosh. Oh, well, okay. And one of Austen's biggest tropes is having the military, having the redcoats sweep into town. And we got that in spades this time around. With all kinds of potential male leads for us to develop crushes for.
Though, if she's taught me anything, our dear Jane, is that you do not trust a redcoat.
No, you don't. You don't. and especially Edward.
Oh. Damn it,
Oh
Edward.
my God.
Not that I had any hope for him, but like, I love the way they set that up. By the way, there's like 40 minutes into the episode, you forgot Edward was even a thing, and then just boom, he's standing right behind characters you've already seen.
Yeah, and it's like, no. And I know you said that you thought he looked good. Not me. He looks creepy.
As discussed previously,
yes.
I like skeevy guys. I have like an actual problem. Please save me. I've always found George Wickham in Pride and Prejudice to be an absolute hottie. That's my problem.
Well, of course he is. Of course he is. He has
Such
to
a
be.
bad boy.
Yes. All of Austen's bad boys are hottie.
I guess there's 4. There's only 4 redcoats. What do you think about Colonel Lennox? What's your impression of him? He's so thirsty.
Yeah. Dude is ready to walk down the aisle. I think that he's kind of cute. Got kind of pinchy features for me, but
Tom Weston Jones is a hottie, but something about him in this role is making me like, oh. I think it's just the extreme thirst on first meeting her. I'm like, that's a red flag for me.
Yeah, it's like, dude, settle down. You are showing your hand way too soon.
And then we have Scottish Captain Fraser. We love a Scot. We will die for them.
Yum.
Barely met him, but love him. And then also baby-faced Captain Carter.
Yes.
Doing his hero rescuing of Alison at the end. Ugh.
They're all adorable. I mean, and I think that they really have to be if we have Edward also in the mix, because he's just all kinds of levels of evil.
Yeah. I think one thing that makes me sort of not trust Colonel Lennox, other than my Jane Austen spidey senses, is that he's such good friends with Edmund. It's like,
yes,
how can you not sense that he's evil?
Yeah. Why can't you tell? You know, are you that oblivious to the fact that you have...
he's being lied to, but I'm just like, oh, come on.
Dude, you've got a sociopath in your company.
And he ain't never paying for that commission.
No. No, you can forget that. Nice try. You guys are suckers for letting him have that thing without coughing up the money first, right? Suckles.
I think they should be suspicious because he's also a sir. He's a sir. And
yes.
And he's the first son that has joined the army.
Yeah.
That is somebody that is desperate for money. Like, use your common sense. Anyway.
Yes.
Contrast Alexander Colborne as a love interest.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Though, he is a love interest, but the way he was introduced was not very love interesty. It wasn't shirtless, sweeping out of a tent, going hello,
or stepping out of a carriage and looking amazing in a giant greatcoat. I think that he's got potential. He's got beautiful eyes. I want to pinch his cheeks because he's got little chipmunk cheeks.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to seeing how that relationship develops, because
and do you like the quirky governess / sad widower trope? Is that something you're down for?
Oh yeah. I can go with that. Absolutely.
I mean, The Sound of Music is my favorite film ever. We love. Is Charlotte gonna teach the kids how to sing? Is that gonna happen? And he's gonna. You brought music back into this house. That would. She does play the piano. That would be fantastic.
Oh man.
But I do get the sense that Charlotte isn't really ready for a relationship.
No.
Colborne seems incredibly closed off to any of that. So though he looks slightly interested. The way he was looking at her, he was like, what is this in front of me? So there, I do hope that it's a slow burn.
Yeah, I do too.
These characters obviously have a lot to deal with before they can be together.
Yeah. And, quite frankly, now that, I know that we have 12 episodes to work with, take the first season to grow and develop this thing. Yeah, there is no rush.
And, like, as a character, he seems like pretty interesting to me because he has got that miserly recluse label hanging over him. And there's obviously some kind of dark, twisty trauma in his background with his wife. So that will be interesting to explore. And I think the way that he spoke to Charlotte and challenged her on her opinions and was really, like, trying to provoke a reaction out of her to try and, like, see what kind of a person she is made me interested in him, because I think so often you see relationships in period dramas and you're like, you just think this girl's hot, basically.
Yeah.
No shade at Darcy, but the reason he first likes Elizabeth is because of her beautiful eyes or something.
Beautiful eyes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, like, with this relationship, I hope they become, like, friends first, where he gets to, like, know her opinions and respect them. And I like that he was challenging her to stand up for herself because, and the fact that he wasn't, like, completely grossed out by it is a good sign. It's like, oh, yes.
So, all looking forward to seeing where that goes.
Actually, as I was just explaining that, I was like, oh, that's the plot of Jane Eyre. That's exactly what Rochester does to Jane. Oh my god. Oh. No, I'm not mad at it. You know I love Jane Eyre.
I know. It is tropes everywhere, trope.
So, what were your favourite scenes?
Well, I know the one that we talked about was Charlotte's return to the Parker home. I thought that was beautifully done. And I also enjoyed the scenes with Arthur and Georgiana. I think that they have such a lovely relationship. And it's funny, the name of the character just flew out of my head. But it's so wonderful to see that actor playing this sweet, lovable role after he played such a jackass in Poldark.
God, what was it?
I know, right?
He's actually been in so many shows that I've watched, and he's always played arseholes.
So yeah, I think those are two of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, I love the fact that he's sort of gunning for my new favourite ship of Georgiana and Charles Lockhart. He was like, hey, guys, have you met my friend Charles, Georgiana?
Oh, man.
He played Tom Harry in Poldark.
That's it. Tom Harry.
Yeah. There we go.
And then we had Tom Harry 2.0, who just didn't do it for me. But Tom Harry, yeah.
I think my favourite scene was the shot of Lady Denham putting 3 spoons of sugar in her tea. I didn't notice it the first time I watched it because I was in such a mess about Sydney's death. But, like, when I was rewatching it to record this podcast, I noticed it and I was like, oh, God. God, I love this. Anne Reid. Absolute superstar. She managed to make putting some tea in her sugar funny. She just
God bless her.
1, 2, 3. And they're gigantic spoons.
Yes.
She's using the most sugar she can.
Heaping spoonfuls. It made my poor pancreas just weep with pain.
I do not believe in sugar in tea in any... sugar should be put in tea anyway.
Yeah.
I am a milk, no sugar person. But yeah, I think it's like such a tiny detail, but it just bodes so well for the season going forward that they were like, no, we're gonna keep showing you Lady Denham using sugar.
Oh, yeah.
That's the detail.
Yes,
I can't wait for them to fight about that. Okay. Least favourite scene.
Oh, God. Can I say any scene with Edward in it? No, seriously. As much as I hate that character, he does a great job at bringing the oily sleaze and the psychological play that the character does in that family is, I mean, he does a really good job. But
the scenes with Esther give me the absolute creeps, though. Like, I get like,
oh yeah,
goosebumps. I'm like,
yeah,
ugh,
yeah. It's just like, get away from her, you pedo. But yeah, I'm trying to think of least favorite scene. I think kind of like my least believable scene was, even as much as I love the fact that they stole that carriage and went for a joyride on the beach, that thing would have broken apart.
How did they get on the beach, by the way? There's railings all across.
Yeah, no idea how they wound up getting that thing down onto the beach, but it looked like it was getting ready to fall apart from the get-go.
It was very jumpy. I was scared the whole time, but I thought it was one of those situations where you're just not supposed to notice that the carriage looks like it's going to fall apart. And then it was like, oh no, it's actually falling apart.
Yeah.
Okay, good. But I love the soldiers' reactions to them. It was like they'd never seen women before. They were like, oh my God!
They're like, oh my God, this is
it was like they were the Beatles, and it's just two women.
Oh, it's a hard day's night. Nice.
No, but I love watching men scramble after women. It's like, yes, that's what you should be doing.
Oh man. Okay, favorite costume.
Oh, wow. After, for those of you who are listening and weren't with us for our Bridgerton podcast, they have a problem with bonnets. They have vetoed the bonnets, and the whole time, for 2 seasons, I've been complaining, I just want some beautiful fucking bonnets. And Sanditon is like the balm on my very hurt bonnet-loving soul.
I
beautiful
love them.
Just,
I love them.
The Hayward sisters have those big straw ones. I really love Charlotte's little yellow ribbons on Charlotte's bonnet. Just so sweet and like wholesome. I love that bonnet. And then you've got like the lace trim that they've put on
Georgiana. Yes.
Yeah. And it's like such a nice little nod to her wealth, because she's like, of course she can afford the expensive lace trim.
Exactly.
But it's like just a subtle little detail. And then just all the background bonnets as well. I love how everyone's always wearing a hat when they're outside. Like, yes, bitch, wear your hats.
This is how it's supposed to be done.
Yes.
Bonnets.
And I loved Esther's little tricorn number she wore on that walk around Sanditon, because it frames her face beautifully, and it gives you all these angles when she's like profiling. She's got like the shot of the profile with the angle of the tricorn. It just makes the show more interesting visually as well. It's such a simple thing, but it just adds to the whole ensemble. I always think like people, like the people in Bridgerton don't look fully dressed like this, like they haven't finished the outfits without the hats. So, 10 out of 10 for hats. Just hats. That should be the name of this podcast.
Thank you for the hats.
Thank you. This is now Hat Fancast. Thank you for listening.
The Hatcast, yes.
And I love the colour palette of the shows change, not just for the sets, but also for all of the costumes.
For the costumes and everything. Yes, me too. Good job, you people.
Thank you for that. What was your favourite ensemble? Not just the hats, because I've talked too much about them.
I know that I loved what Mary was wearing when she went to the farm to see Charlotte. The all black, but it was beautifully put together. Very striking. As the minute you saw her, you know,
morning.
Of course. Yeah. And, so like the minute that Charlotte sees her, she knows that something dreadful has happened, but not to who. But anyhow, so I loved that, ensemble. You mentioned, Esther's tricorn, that whole outfit, the whole thing. Yeah. Damn. With the train. Oh yeah. Girl is working.
I love that she's still working her little goth girl aesthetic. Mm-hmm. You can imagine.
Yeah. So those were two really up at the top for me. How about you?
I mean, shout out to Colborne's waistcoat, because I thought that was
fabulous.
You.
Love me a waistcoat.
You will learn if you're new that we love a waistcoat.
Yeah, it's a thing.
I loved when the girls were going to see, just randomly walk into the regiment's camp. Like, that's not weird.
Yeah, it's like, really? All three single women just strolling on down to see the regiment?
Insane. I loved the girls' outfits in that, because you've got, like, Georgiana is in this, like, cute blue and white stripy number. And then you've got Charlotte was in her little pastel yellow outfit, and then Alison had like this like pale lavender little coat thing, and it was like they were all in little they look like Easter bonnets, you know, like prairie colours, pastels, just very, very sweet, cute.
Yes.
Like
pastels, blue sky, green grass, red coats, you know, it doesn't get better than that.
I know, it feels like going on holiday when you watch this. It's just fun times.
Yes.
Okay, so performer of the episode.
Whew. Well, Charlotte, our little Rose, she was incredible. Really thought she turned in sensitive, deep, meaningful performances for this episode. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of that, how it develops, and as we go through the next 12 episodes. How about you?
I definitely agree.
Yeah.
Rose Williams is sensational, and like we said earlier, like there is a complete shift in her characterization, and she's managed to do both these like opposite ends of the spectrum versions of Charlotte so brilliantly. Just very moving. 10 out of 10.
Kudos.
How many unrotten Antigua black pineapples out of 5? Grade this episode with... By the way, I googled what an Antigua black pineapple looked like, and I can see why Georgiana was like, that ain't no Antigua black. They look so fucking different from a regular pineapple, girls.
Oh my god. Okay, I'm going to have to look it up. But I'm going to give it 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
I'm giving it 5, so please explain the 0.5% knockoff.
I want to give some room for, like, knocking me on my ass. So, yeah, that's it.
Okay. When we first discussed doing this podcast, I was like, but I can't watch it without Theo J. Remember?
Yes, I do.
Remember. I was really wrong, so I'm giving it an extra extra 0.5 for the, oh my god, you got me interested in this factor. Yeah.
I see. Well, that
I love being proved wrong is basically what I'm saying here. Thank you.
No,
you know how in love with Theo James I was. It was embarrassing.
Oh my god, it was kind of crazy.
It was.
You loved him like I loved Aidan Turner.
Yeah, but like also not enough to watch his new show. So make that make sense. I think I just loved this character as well.
Yeah,
he was.
Yeah. Well,
he was wearing leather trousers and being kind of a dick. I love that.
I mean, there was a reason why, his career went through the stratosphere after Downton Abbey and his turn as Mr. Pamuk. Poor Mr. Pamuk.
Everyone, please go find the episode we recorded. We remember we were in lockdown just watching Mr. Pamuk die.
Mr. Pamuk. Yes. Oh, R.I.P. Mr. Pamuk.
I don't understand why they hired Theo James to play a Turkish person.
I know. I know. It's like, oh, God. He's swarthy. Let's go with him. My God.
Okay. Postcards from Sanditon. This is me pretending to be the ocean. Imagine you're on a beach reading some postcards. It's lovely. So our first one says, Dear ladies of the Ton, love this show. The second season had me addicted to my PBS Masterpiece Prime Video subscription. I love Alison Hayward so much. She is a delightful mix of Marianne Dashwood and Catherine Morland. Georgiana Lamb, still fun, but more mature than the first season. I can't wait to hear all your observations. You two are the very best. Happy podcasting. And this is from Beth from Salt Lake City.
Thank you, Beth.
Thanks, Beth.
Let's see. Good afternoon. I adored Season 2, Episode 1. It felt like coming home, seeing our favorite actors back in Sanditon again, and falling in love with all the new characters. I love the new storylines, and I truly felt it paid a great tribute to Sydney Parker leaving. I am over the moon excited waiting for Season 3. Thank you, Marianne S.18. Thank you.
Greetings, dearest podcasters. It's good to be back in Sanditon after a super long hiatus. I had no need of the recap at the beginning since I rewatched Season 1 more times than I can count. I also read a couple of fan fictions that gave Charlotte and Sydney a happy ending to tide me over, and thank God for Bridgerton. It was a great antidote. But alas, the happy ending of those two beautiful people was laid to rest right from the get-go of this episode. The showrunners made sure we had closure by putting the nail in the coffin. That ship has sailed. Okay, enough bad puns. We have lots of familiar faces, and we got a lot of exposition about why some characters are missing. I suppose there is some hope for Charlotte's Springer shippers. I don't remember the ship name for them, sorry. It was a pleasure to see Arthur, Georgiana, Lady Denham, and especially Esther. The one I really miss is Lord Babington. Edward is as skeevy as ever. Quite amazing how acting can make a very good-looking man quite repulsive.
Agree.
I don't want to say too much about the new characters because I've watched all of Season 2 already and my opinions are not fresh. Two things struck me though that aren't spoilers. Alison was giving off strong Lydia Bennet vibes, but we can already tell she has more than half of a brain. Oh, the Lydia Bennet slander. Leo looks like a young Dan Stevens with those bright blue eyes and very straight nose. I can't find much about the actress, but I doubt there's any connection.
Yeah,
Secret Dan Stevens love child confirmed.
Oh, God.
My favourite scenes were Charlotte's interview with Mr. Colborne and any scene with Lady D and Esther. That's what keeps me coming back. My least favourite scenes were Charlotte's rescue of Leo. She was in the pavilion in the scene before that. How could she be the one that first sees what's about to happen, and B, gets there in time? It's quite contrived to get Colonel Lennox a reason to visit the Parkers. I mean, you don't need to give Colonel Lennox too many excuses.
No, he's dude is ready to go over there regardless of what might give him an excuse.
The pastor and his sister with Georgiana. They're supposed to be chaperones, but they never take her anywhere. I guess they're supposed to be comic relief, but I'm kind of tired of those stereotypical characters. Can't wait to hear your recap and your reactions. Keep up the great fun podcasts. Your friend and CT, Carol. Oh, thanks, Carol.
Thanks, Carol. Let's see. 3 main thoughts to share about Season 2, Episode 1. Sydney's death in the beginning was respectful and necessary. Killing Sydney off was a way of not only respecting the character, but the actor who portrayed him. If they had tried to recast, there would be constant comparisons, which would not be fair to the new actor or Theo. So it respects the work of the first season by closing that chapter, as it sounds like Theo had wanted. Second, if you care about the character of Charlotte, Sidney's death is the most merciful thing. Yes, she is grieving his death and feels that she can't move on. But if she had to spend multiple seasons thinking he was out there with someone else, it would be even more painful for her character and likely block any resolution that we hope will come in season 3. Conversation between Georgiana and Charlotte. As Georgiana is walking Charlotte to work, they have a powerful conversation about their own independence and freedom. Charlotte says she does not want to be beholden to anyone, not even you, meaning Georgiana. And Georgiana says she understands. It is a great moment and reminder that even power and station cannot protect Georgiana from potential harm and control by a future husband. She too wants to hold on to her freedom and independence like Charlotte. It sheds light on the position of women at the time, which the second season continues to explore. Charlotte's interview with Colborne. There are 2 moments in this interview that are really powerful. When Charlotte says, "I believe in independence of spirit is to be encouraged," she's not only talking about her pedagogy.
Don't ask me.
Oh, God. I did graduate college, I promise. But she is sharing about herself. And although Colborne in the moment seems to not agree, it is clear that he does see this as somewhat important, otherwise he would not hire her. Second moment is when Charlotte says, "Why should your girls be deprived of an education on account of her sex?" This moment shows Charlotte through and through. Yes, she wants to be a governess to guard her freedom, but she would rather not get a job than teach a young lady and girl that they are to become meekly and submissive. She stands on her principles, even if those principles put in jeopardy the very freedom she is trying to preserve. And again, Colborne's reaction of hiring her shows, even if his initial reactions are to the contrary of what Charlotte says, that he sees truth in what she says. Overall, I thought season 2, episode 1 was a strong start to the new season. Looking forward to the podcast. Best, Eve M.
Thank you, Eve. That was very insightful. Now let's head on over to episode 2. Let's read the description. Charlotte starts her new job as governess for the mysterious Alexander Colborne. Alison longs for her knight in shining armour. Oh, Alison. Georgiana receives some bad news. That doesn't go well. And Tom and Colonel Lennox make plans for Sanditon's development.
Dear.
So, what are you most looking forward to in that pile of just mess?
I need to know what's going on with Georgiana. I have anxiety over that. Yeah, I have anxiety over her situation.
I have anxiety about all of this. God, Tom and Colonel Lennox making Sanditon plans? No.
Oh, God.
Alison pining for a knight in shining armour when he's just a teenage boy in the army. It's just...
Oh, gosh. And looking forward to seeing how Charlotte does in the Colborne household.
I imagine she's going to teach him the importance of loving his children. That's usually what happens.
Yeah.
There's going to be a scene where she's like, "You should love your children more. They just want to spend time with you." And then they sing Edelweiss and everything's happy again.
But will they make it over the mountain?
Climb every mountain.
You know, my parents had to haul me out of Sound of Music when we went to see it in a movie theater because I was crying and yelling at the top of my lungs, "They're not going to make it over the mountain."
Why would you think that?
Because I was a pessimistic little shit, even back then.
It's okay. They are hiking over the Alps in their dress shoes. It's fine.
Not gonna make it over the mountain.
They would have been climbing into Germany. It's just, I always sound really funny, but anyway, we've
He's
gone
like, no,
wildly off.
you don't want to go that way.
That's the wrong way.
No.
Go to France.
Yeah, head over to France.
Anyway.
Just get out of France before the war gets started. But, oh my God.
Anyway.
Oh, whew, sorry. Wrong wrong show. Wrong show. Oh my gosh. Gang, that's all from us this week. We'll be back discussing episode 2. And in the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram for updates. We are In the Books Network. You can also email us if you want to be read out in our postcard feature. Then please email us at inthebooksnetwork@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends and give us a rate and review on whatever podcast gizmo you're using. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Bye.